All right, let's go ahead and get started if that's okay. Let's call the meeting to order and approve the minutes from December 1, 2020. I don't know if you all had a chance to review the minutes.
Yeah, I'll move that the minutes be approved.
I'll second that.
All right, and I'll third it. How about that? So,
Okay.
There you go. I think that makes it official, doesn't it?
that is. That makes it pretty much done. So, like I said, this meeting's not going to last long, but I want to kind of just set the tone a little bit for 2021. How we're going or what we're going to do, what we're going to look at, and I think 2020. At least from my standpoint, I learned a lot about how the city works and the financials and trying to bury into some of those some of the I guess estimates and I don't know. I don't even know what we call it, the big book of financials, I guess, or something of that nature. So so we'll talk a little bit about that. But first of all, I just want to make a note that I have actually requested information on the BKD Baker Tilly Taft examination or review that the mayor had. I've requested information from Brian Zager, Todd Bertrand, and Mayor Cook, and I know you guys have been copied on that, and to this date still have not seen anything. So I'm not really sure where we are in that examination process. I really only care only from the standpoint that I want to know if we're half done or if they feel like they're just about complete or 90% complete or something of that nature. So beyond that, yeah.
Troy, I'd like to inject something. I've been thinking about that. We have a gentleman's agreement, not a written agreement. I realize that the information will be shared jointly with the city council and the administration. I wish to be sure that that is going to happen. I think if we feel like it is not going to happen as the agreement is, that we seek her out to find other information if that information exists.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I really, part of me doesn't care, but part of me, we work for the citizens of Westfield, and I do think it's imperative that, we do have knowledge of certain things and that we know kind of where we stand on certain things. And I mean, this is an examination. It's important. We already had the State Board of Accounts come in and give their feedback of some things that we clearly need to improve upon. And I just, more from a standpoint, I don't need to know that they're sending a letter to, this person or that person or anything like that. I merely just wanted to know, are we 50% complete, 75% complete? Are we going to spend $200,000 on this? Are we going to be 100,000? Are we going to be 400,000? Just something of that nature.
And Troy, that's the key in my mind, is not only what percentage we are, complete towards completion, but where, how deep are we? So, if we spent $200,000 and, we're near completion, okay, so be it. If we spent $200,000 and we're 5% done, then we've got to kind of gather our thoughts and figure out what makes sense.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Very good.
I feel like we've made some strides on this, but actually it's the duty of the administration, the mayor, and the administration in general, to fully inform the legislative and fiscal body about what's going on. In fact, it's embodied in state statute, number 2 duty, right out there. And I think it's time for it to happen properly and not to be, scurried around and not reported. And I think we can only make good decisions if we have good information. And
that's correct.
So far, we haven't got that, but we're going to get it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just move on. I mean, because no sense in beating a dead horse there. I think we're trying to be professional about it and ask appropriately, and that's all we can do is we can do our part, and we have to hope that others do theirs. So, okay. Let's just move on to what I have on as 910, and really again, this is not necessarily to go through everything in detail, but it is more to lay out a game plan. And is what I'm going to do is I'm going to create just a one-page document of what I would like to see, and then what this committee would like to cover for 2021. And I know it's a long year, and we'll have other things that come up. I mean, clearly we have some other financial issues with Grand Junction, and we still need to probably get our arms around Grand Park and some other things there, and maybe some of the TIF districts and how we're going to spend money. And I think Mike Johns made some really good points on some debt issuance that we could be facing maybe in the near future. So I think we'll have some things like that in 2021 to address as well. But the one thing that when I had met with Mayor Cook, it's been several weeks ago now. We had talked about the city, the desired population. We had talked about some other more kind of, I'm just kind of thinking, large picture here. What we want Westfield to look like. So, if we want Westfield to be built out, in terms of residential or industrial, and as we have kind of this game plan that's been created by the city, and I think it's actually very good. What does our tax base look like, and what can we anticipate in tax revenues for the next 5 to 10 years based on the neighborhoods that have already been approved and the lots that will be therein in those neighborhoods. And I think that's really important. So, for instance, just to kind of as a broad stroke here, if we have a neighborhood like Del Webb or something where it's 55 and older, and we're having less kids, but those folks are paying property taxes, we can understand that may not be quite as taxing. I'm using that word, quite as taxing on the community because those folks may not have kids in the system and that sort of thing. So I really want to see kind of where we're going to be a good, just like in every good business, we have a 1, 3, 5 year outlook. And I think, and Westfield has that as well in terms of the financial side. I really just want to hone in on that. And I want to understand where we are so we can, one of my goals is, again, to revisit this perpetual debt that we seem to have and see where we can go to work to pay that off and then lower the property taxes for the people of Westfield, or give them different amenities that they don't already have. And so I think that's kind of what I think our charge should be for 2021, but I'd love your guys' input on that.
Yeah. Well, I think you're on track. We have to know where we're going and in general how we're going to get there. And without the proper information, it's pretty difficult to make that happen. But I think that we've made some strides, and we need to keep making strides so that we can achieve these goals.
Right.
There are things happening around us that we probably don't even know about, and which could change the complexion. Well, that's not even the right word. Could change the business housing mix in this thing, and that's pretty important. About what does Westfield look like, and what's our tax base going to be, and how are we going to change all that?
Right.
If we need to change it at all.
Yeah, I've kind of put out a recent poll that just trying to get some feedback, and I'm going to keep that going because it seems like people are still circulating that, and we're getting some pretty good responses, and it does seem that a lot of people almost they may disagree on other subjects in that poll, but the one thing that's pretty prevalent is everybody wants to see larger homes, larger lot sizes.
Right. That's exactly right.
And I mean, that's probably 95% of everyone that responds. It's really interesting. I suspected that, I guess, but I mean, and then some people, when we say, hey, what do we want more of? Is it, residential, industrial, that sort of thing. That's probably still up for debate. It's, because of the tax base, et cetera. But I'm going to give you a quick Joe Edwards story, and then and then have Scott Fry weigh in. So, and when Joe, when you were talking, it just kind of reminded me of this. We have to know where we're going, and you have to kind of know where you've been. And years ago, when I spoke, I used to teach CPAs all around the country. Not only on how to build their practice, but how to run it, and was a consultant for the American Dental Association. I used to go to their things and teach finance and that sort of, whatever. And I used to use this example, and this is my Joe Edwards story. So if somebody says, "Hey, Troy, I'm heading to Florida. How do I get there?" And I said, "Oh, that's easy. You just take 75, right straight down to Florida." And they say, "Oh yeah, that's simple." Okay, and then we all walk away. But what I didn't tell them is, hey, there may be some detours along the way. You're going to stop and need to get gas at certain times. You may run into some inclement weather along the way. There's different things that you have to try to prepare for. If you don't prepare for any of those things, you're going to run out of gas by probably about Tennessee, and you'll never make it to Florida, right? And
Right.
So I used to always use that kind of analogy. Probably did a better job back then because I remembered what I was talking about. But anyways, I think it still holds true really for Westfield as well. It's good to know where we've been, and we really need to know where we're going so we can make good decisions. And so as a finance committee, we can make good recommendations to the rest of the city council. So, and Scott, you have any thoughts on this?
No, I agree completely. I mean, the one thing that I would say, or the small thing that I would add to that is we've talked about this for a while. We've talked about, the concept you just laid out in front of us, Troy, which is, knowing where we're wanting to go, knowing where we are right now, and then devising a plan to get there. We've talked about it. We've asked those questions. The only thing I would add to that is that 2021, this should be a year of action. I mean, this should be a year of actually moving forward with our to stick with your analogy, with our journey, I guess. Let's understand we're in this together. We're all wanting the same thing, and that's the betterment of Westfield. We've got to figure out a way to actually put those words into actions, and that's just a matter of getting the right people involved and having those conversations and sharing that. Again, going back to sharing the information. And figuring out what that looks like moving forward. So right. I would love to see 2021 be different in that, at least on this topic, we don't just ask the questions. We actually ask the questions and put it into action, see some motion out of it.
Yeah, I would agree, Scott. I mean, you have to be able to execute, right? I mean, anybody can form a well-laid plan, but you have to be able to execute on it. And I think you're spot on. Years ago, I had a relative that used to do work in the turnaround business, and they always said, there's a lot of guys that can go in and say, hey, this is what's wrong, but if they don't have a plan to fix it, they're no better than the people running the business that put it into the ground to begin with.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. No, and I think a key part of that, Troy, again, is sincerely understanding it doesn't matter who you are, where you fit in the picture. We're in this together, and I think ultimately, at the end of the day, we want the same thing. It's just, I had this conversation the other day with somebody. Ultimately, we are after the same things. We might have disagreements or different opinions on minor details along the way, but at the end of the day, we are wanting the same thing. So working together really shouldn't be that difficult on this.
Yeah, I agree. Oops. So, okay. Really, folks, that's really all I have. I mean, if somebody else has anything else that they want to share, I really don't have anything else. I know it's, like I said, it's a very quick meeting, but I just want to kind of lay the game plan, and I'm gonna reach out to Todd Bertrand And, I know we use outside consultants to kind of create that vision. And so I want to be cognizant of any costs that, we would have in terms of getting that information, but, and or working with them, to make sure that we have that information at our fingertips. But I think I think it'll be really interesting because I do think, like Scott, like what you said, I mean, the community wants, and we all certain things, and I think we all want those same things. We want a thriving community that operates in the best interest of its citizens and the people that live here. And we need to, have good information. And if an overwhelming majority of the people want larger lots and neighborhoods with bigger homes, then that's really the direction we should go. So, all right.
Troy, I do have before you bring this to conclusion, I do have one other similar but a little off topic conversation that I'd like to start, if that's all right.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, and it's just honestly, it's just related to the current one of the current hot topics right now since the last city council meeting has been the 161st Street and the safety issues and concerns there.
Yeah.
I just think it's important that as we look at the improvement of safety there, we've talked a lot about the Hawk system and things like that. I think it's important that we, figure out what type of cost. We've talked about the cost associated with the Hawk system, but that's the key factor. That's I guess the main ingredient, so to speak, to improving while we're waiting on what the future of the tunnel might be. That's the key ingredient to improving the safety in a more immediate window, so to speak.
Yep.
But it's not the only thing. So we need to figure out what we can do to get our arms around the cost of some of the smaller things that we've talked about adding there, implementing there, potentially for short term, like the rumble strips on the path and things like that. I know Jeremy had addressed that and said, hey, basically he was just waiting for good weather and things like that. Again, I don't know costs associated with that, costs associated with maybe like some of the speed indicators that we talked about and things of that nature. So I want to make sure that we've got that on the radar, Troy, just so that we can prepare for it, so there are no significant surprises or anything like that. But obviously we've heard the call for safety and the demand for improved safety at that intersection. Let's figure out what that's going to cost us while we're figuring out what the future of the tunnel is, and like I said, let's avoid the surprises.
Yeah, I would agree, Scott. And I sent an email this morning to the chief of police and Jeremy Lawler and Todd Bertrand about the speed ordinance and just some suggestions and ideas about signage and that sort of thing. And it's not in particular. I mentioned 161st and Monon, but it's not in. That's really not the only one. In fact, literally somebody on Sunday this weekend said that I ran across said if we're going to do this, we should put a tunnel in at 151st, because they said people are now coming up speeding there. And I said that's just probably not going to happen. So we need to figure out ways that we can maybe be a little more consistent amongst all those Monon crossings. And make them safer, because as we continue to grow, it won't just be 161st and Monon. It's going to be all of them. Like, unfortunately, 191st and Monon. I think that's another hot one that people are starting to talk about, especially with people coming in from out of town going to Grand Park. And so maybe if we can have a little more consistency amongst all those crossings. And I know there's a cost there, and we'll have to kind of figure that out and work with Jeremy and his group and to make sure that we know all that. So, all righty. Anybody else?
I don't have anything.
Does anybody on the call have any questions or would like to say something? Okay. All right. Well, the meeting's adjourned. It's pretty quick, and I'll be circulating some information on kind of the financials and 2021 as we discussed. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Troy.
Have a good one, guys.
Bye.